This is something to talk about, which we do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here at the Senior Center. And at 11:30, you can hear about a variety of topics. Today, our guest is Mark Epstein, who is the project manager for the Sound to Olympic Trail, at least a section of it, that we're working on right now in the city. And I'm sure that you, because we all got news and traded pictures of the ruminant weed removal team, the goats who were at the corner of Highway 305 and High School Road. And that brought our attention to something that's underway, that's going to happen soon, which is the creation of a trail, an extension of the trail that goes from the ferry up to High School Road on the other side of the highway, on the other side of 305, starting at that same intersection. So Mark, thank you for joining us, and thank you for updating us on this program. And the goats got you in the news.
Yeah, the goats, I'd like to say we had nothing to do with bringing the goats in, but we are happy they were there, and they did bring a lot of attention to the project, and we're grateful for that.
So they were brought in to remove blackberries and other underbrush. Would that have been part of the project that you would have had to work with if the goats weren't there?
It would have. Yeah, we would clear all that underbrush to grade and pave the trail anyway. But this did two things. One, it cleared the underbrush so that we could see better where we're going. But I think even maybe more importantly is it did allow passersby and the community to see the site and what is proposed before we start with the heavy equipment coming in.
Yeah, we did have a big kerfuffle a bit when the first part of the project began, because although I'm sure the city did what it could to let people know that things were happening, the announcements were, as often happens here, difficult to suss out if you weren't a real City Hall watcher. And so when the bulldozers moved in, the picketers moved in as well. So I'm imagining that the continuation of the trail will also involve some heavy equipment. Can you tell us a little bit about what's next and where you're going?
Sure, but maybe it's helpful just to show some pictures of where we're going. So I'm going to share my screen and just make it a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. Can you see the photograph? And yep. I'm assuming you can. So the project location is right here in the red box at the intersection, northwest intersection of High School Road and 305. And just maybe a little bit of history for those that haven't been around since like 2014 or so. This trail extension is a requirement of the Wintergreen development, more commonly known back then as the Visconsi development, that has the Walgreens on the corner here. And they were, as part of this development, were required to put in a trail along their frontage on the east side of 305 for the length of their development. Back in 2014, we approached Visconsi based on input from our non-motorized advisory committee and others, that it would be better suited to have their trail on the west side of the highway because it tied in better with the planning efforts for where the STO was going to go in the future, which is predominantly along the west side of the highway.
And STO is Sound to Olympics Trail.
The Sound Olympics Trail, and we've got other graphics to show sort of where that trail is proposed, and Don Willott could go into more detail because he's here as well about one of the bigger planning effort. So we worked with, let's see if I change that. Can you see the change in the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So our first iteration was to put the trail on the west side along the highway, because we usually have to stay within the Department of Transportation right of way, which is shown by this line that sort of jogs here and goes there. This is Sakai Park, owned by the Parks District, and they approached us when they saw this alignment and preferred that the trail not go between the highway and Sakai Pond, which is a nice feature that they're highlighting in the park, and a lot of people hadn't even been aware of the pond there. It was quite a lovely spot. So with their collaboration and cooperation, we adjusted the alignment of the trail to move here and take a turn to the west, right on the south end of the pond, to connect to some trails that the Park District is building, is already I think just recently completed within Sakai Park. So that is the current alignment, and construction is due to begin. I believe the contractor will mobilize on June 1st, so coming right up. And just maybe a little bit of context also, the alignment of the trail, this is our segment, and we're currently planning and talking with Parks and the Parks Foundation to come up with a future alignment of the trail going up to the intersection of Madison and 305 there at the corner up here. So the idea was with Parks at the STO, at a future point, we go around the pond. It could, at this point, the plan is to bring it back to the highway right away and continue north, although there's some discussion about potentially with negotiations with private property owners here of maybe having a slightly different alignment rather than adjacent to the highway.
So as you said, Don Willott is here, and I wonder if you'd be willing, Don, to talk a little bit about the vision of the Sound to Olympics Trail, because I know you've been following it not only here on the island, but off island as well.
Well, I just have to say that I wrote the concept for the Sound to Olympics Trail in 2006, that the city then, through the non-motorized committee, submitted to Puget Sound Regional Council. And that's a step that you have to do if you want to get money through the Puget Sound Regional Council. And that's federal money that passes through the state and then through the regional council. So, and we originally, just to make it unmistakably clear what we were talking about, called it the something like the Puget Sound to Hood Canal Trail. So then it's gone through all of the entities that have to say, this is our municipality, and we want this trail to be in this place. So at a point in time in the county planning, when the North Kitsap Trails Association was writing a trail plan for the whole county, we added a branch from the Edmonds-Kingston ferry to connect over and up through Port Campbell. So a lot is happening, and in context, you would want to be aware that the city of Paulsbo is in the midst of construction of a section of Sound to Olympics Trail at the Johnson Way, Johnson Road intersection that includes a tunnel that gets people from one side of the highway to the other. And they led on that project, not WashDOT, they led on that project. And then in Port Campbell, there's more than 6 miles. We're in the midst of a year-long master planning process. And the route is essentially determined, but the nature of the character of the whole place is in planning. Essentially, it's how do we get from industrial timberland to native diverse forest. And then you would want to know that beyond the Hood Canal Bridge, currently planning is that the Sound to Olympics Trail will go from the Hood Canal Bridge to intersect probably through Port Ledlow to intersect up in probably Chimacum. So it's now a 2-county planning process.
Yeah,
So that's the
two county and multiple entities, as Mark was just pointing out.
Yeah, multiple jurisdictions. So that's the vision. We are now, the Sound Olympics Trail is a segment of the Rails to Trails Conservancy's Great American Rail Trail that goes from Washington, D.C. to the Pacific Ocean at La Push. And the importance of that is that it brings a lot more attention to our effort. The primary benefit is those of us who live here being able to get to these other places we'd like to go to. But it helps a lot to have people know that you're there. And we tend to be considered the forgotten side of Puget Sound when the big dogs are King County, Snohomish County, and Pierce County. So we can use that.
Sometimes we like that.
Yeah, that's right. Lesser Kitsap.
Yeah.
So that maybe is in a nutshell the grand scope of the project.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think, Mark, you might be able to tell us a little bit about, from the city's perspective, besides the grand effort of being able to get from here to La Push, what kinds of benefits does the STO provide for us getting from one place to another on the island?
Sure, thanks, Reed. The STO really was envisioned as it'll be pretty much our only shared use path, which is a wide paved path that is bi-directional, so meant for multiple types of users, people walking, riding bikes, pushing strollers, other kinds of rolled things, that's separated from the highway. So it's our safest and most comfortable facility for non-motorized travel. And the STO was really envisioned to be that main spine between Winslow and the Agate Pass Bridge to get people from other neighborhoods, from the north end of the island down into Winslow without having to use a car. It kind of fits into our sustainable transportation planning effort that we're also currently doing to try to reduce trips by vehicles, especially single occupancy vehicles. So it's all part of our climate action plan as well. It all fits together.
And it is what you've done so far, which is really just a segment, doesn't quite get us too far, but I think it's already getting a fair amount of use.
Yeah, from just anecdotally, from what I've seen, it's gotten quite a bit of use. And like you say, a small segment really isn't a good judge. It doesn't give us enough data to figure out how much it will be used in the future, because the more places it serves, the longer it is, the more it connects to other trails, the more use it's going to get. So it really is part of a bigger term vision about how we want islanders to get around the island.
And this next section is going to give us a key, because it's going to connect with other trails not part of the STO.
That's right. It's so besides connecting to all the trails that go through Sakai Park, there's Dana's Trail that some of you may have heard about that would connect to school district trails into and through the high school and around the high school. The idea is there'd be maybe spur trails that could connect to Copper Top. We have other good non-motorized connections to all the schools. So this segment is kind of an important piece. There's a lot of community destinations between the library down the street on High School Road, all the schools that are on Madison, and then further north.
Now, Douglas Crist is on here. I don't know if you want to say anything, Douglas, about the Park District's interest. I know that you aren't with the Park District, but you work with the foundation quite a bit. So would you be willing to chime into the value for Sakai Park?
Well, as you observe, I can't comment for the Park District, but I can, give some perspective from the Parks Foundation. We're the 501c3 that supports parks and trails on the island and works in close partnership with the Park District. And we helped fund the construction of the new trails in Sakai Park last summer. So we're super thrilled to see this connection to those trails. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they follow this new trail and bump into Sakai Pond for the first time. That's one of the city council members commented, and others have as well, that the Sakai trails and the Sakai Pond well, the pond's been there forever, but the trails to it through Sakai Park just materialized through the diligent efforts of the Park District last summer. And I don't think a lot of people have bumped into them. And so when this new trail goes in, the new STO Sakai Pond Connector, it's going to be a surprise and I think a delight to a lot of people. So we're definitely excited to be part of the project and to be partnering with the city by bringing in the goats.
Yes, the goats were great. And apparently they were cost effective as well as just a delight.
Well, you know, I'm not at the dollars and cents end of the organization. I'm just a storyteller, but I think from a PR perspective, you know, you couldn't have done any better. If bulldozers roll into the property, then hackles are raised, but who doesn't love goats? And seeing the herd of 120 goats spill out of the trailer and go charging across the landscape to eat everything in sight, it's you know, it drew small crowds, and we knew that would be true because you know, we've helped use bringing the goats for vegetation control in Blakely Harbor Park and Fort Ward Park in the past, and so people love them, and kind of softened the start of this project, I think, which was good for all concerned. Although I will say that some folks can still be hasty in their judgment. While Tammy Dunnican, the Rent-A-Ruminants proprietor, she was there a day early and was setting up the electric fence for the goats, and a motorist on the highway pulled over or slowed down, rolled down their window and shouted, "You greedy so-and-so," except they didn't say so-and-so. But hopefully when that motorist, hopefully they read the paper and found out that in fact it was not, the property was not being developed, but actually improved with a trail for the benefit of the public. So yeah. Bainbridge will be Bainbridge. But
and Don certainly enjoyed the goats. I saw a lot of pictures on your Facebook page.
Yeah, I wanted to share with people what was going on. That is just so important for such a large project that you just have to get the word out that people understand what's happening and can ask questions. By the way, it was thousands of dollars cheaper to do that with goats and compared to mechanical removal.
Yeah, and instead of leaving oil spills behind, they left fertilizer.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next phase is going to probably involve some tree removal. I'd like Mark to talk a little bit about maybe what we can expect in terms of that and what the sort of mitigation efforts might be in the long term for this, because you're going to put in a large, the same width trail as we already have, right?
This one is good. Well, so the existing trail is two different widths. We have a 12-foot wide paved path from Winslow Way up to Vineyard Lane, and then it narrows down to 10 feet between Vineyard Lane and High School Road. This path north of High School Road is going to be 10 feet wide. I'm assuming you can see the plan that I just shared.
Yes.
So it'll be 10 feet wide from the intersection all the way up until it gets to the right-of-way line with the park. And it's going to pinch down to a 6-foot wide gravel trail to meet the 6-foot wide trails that are inside the park. So that's just being done as a sort of interim measure until we can plan from the right-of-way line into the park and around Sakai Pond, so that it'll be a 10-foot wide paved path around at some point in the future.
And can you, yeah, was somebody going to say?
I was going to say that the 10 feet in that location will probably feel a little bit pinched as we get the kind of traffic that we expect. But it's delightful to get this next section going.
So the idea behind the 10 feet is the multi-use, right? Is that we're going to have people, a lot of people with different kinds of, either by foot, by stroller, bicycle,
Right.
all using the same path.
Yeah, that's right.
Wheelchairs,
two directions,
scooters, little kids going sideways.
I was going to add that 10 feet is the minimum width for a shared use path that allows that multi-use.
Great. And so what kind of well, landscape destruction are we going to see in the process of this construction?
You mean landscape enhancement?
Well, it's not going to look like an enhancement in the short term, probably.
Not the short term, yeah. And that's the problem with all construction projects. They look bad at the beginning because we have to do some demolition to make way for the improvements. So in this phase, we are scheduled to take down about 32 trees, although as we move through, I've talked with the contractor yesterday about maybe reducing that number if possible, if they can snake through there. So, but we have scheduled 32 trees to come down to mitigate and enhance the corridor after construction. We're going to plant about 190 native trees with another 180 native shrubs. So we anticipate that the final product is going to look a lot better than actually it does now.
Great. And so what's the timeline for that?
The construction begins June 1st. They have 100 working days, but I told them if it takes them 100 working days, they'll never do another job on the island again. Because this is a fairly simple job. They should be done within a couple of months, I would think, 2-3 months.
I want to make sure that if anybody has any questions or comments that they'd like to make, feel free to either raise your hand, you can wave your hand, or just interrupt if you want. Nancy, yes, you'll need to unmute yourself, but then you're welcome to ask away. There you go.
I have a fundamental question, and that is, how does this trail get off of the island?
Well, the trail actually stays on the island the whole time. But
No.
no, I know what you're saying. I'm joking. Yeah. So how does it cross the bridge?
Yes.
The existing bridge, the way the bridge is now?
Yeah, that is a problem. That is a pinch point.
I'd call that beyond a pinch point. It's tricky just to ride your bike across there now. With what you've got. And if you're bringing in tons and tons of visitors and things, are there any extenuating plans for up there?
There's not. I mean, we've had discussions with WashDOT about, and there's been a lot of discussion about sort of what could be done to retrofit the bridge to increase the comfort crossing the bridge on a bike or walking. To my knowledge, that really hasn't gone very far.
Oh, is there something maybe that the Parks Foundation could do a fundraiser for?
Maybe like a zip line. Could we have a zip line across there?
Well,
I'd like that.
I could say a few words about that.
Okay, Don.
This really is a negotiation with WashDOT at some point, and it actually already has been because the in Kitsap we got for SR 305 $36.8 million to do what WashDOT is envisioning as a series of roundabouts. But in building highway related things, in one way that's a lot of money, in another way it's not. So my understanding is that the bridge is structurally sound, but functionally obsolete is the way they think of it. But I believe that a cantilever off of the bridge is actually feasible, still not cheap, like in the order of millions instead of many millions to replace the whole bridge. But we should be having a conversation, and this is important, I believe, for the council as well as staff to educate themselves and cultivate that vision, because it's simply, I mean, the Sound Olympics Trail is a regional trail. It's intended to carry, families with kids and whatnot. So in the long term, we have to plan for multimodal, and it has to be it has to get across to the rest of the county.
Yeah, thank you. Well, okay.
Winifred.
Well, it just occurs.
Oh.
I mean, if all of the energy and finance is going into, and the purpose is to enhance the flow of traffic along 305 with the roundabouts.
Well, I hope that one of the things that we pointed out already is that there are advantages to those of us who live on the island to increase non-motorized traffic, getting off of the highway ourselves, or using a bike to get somewhere rather than, or our feet to get somewhere rather than a car. And so this is a push point for the regional vision, but I don't think it undermines the local vision. It's worth doing anyway.
Oh, I just look at it every time and I say, swell, but how does it go further?
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't see that happening. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Now we're going to let Winifred get in here.
Well, I just have a really basic question for Mark, and that has to do with where is the construction laydown going to be when you do this extension of the trail to Sakai? Because I think that was one of the complicating factors when the first stretch of the STO was put in place, is that there was a lot of laydown around Cave Avenue and in places where people were trying to live and park and that kind of thing. So I guess
this is like a staging area you're asking about?
Yeah, where do you store the equipment at night? Where do you refuel it? Where do you put the material that you need to put on the surface of the path? That kind of thing.
It's a really good question. Thanks for asking it. Well, I'll start by saying this segment of trail is a magnitude easier than that first segment of trail, just because we're not dealing with we're not dealing with so much trail. We had to do a separated pedestrian path, that first segment right at Winslow Way, to get the accessibility requirements in. And it's not nearly as steep, so we don't have as many walls. The impact of this construction is going to be way lower than that first segment. There's still going to be some equipment. They're either going to stage it on site, or they could potentially stage it at a lot near the Ace Hardware, which has been used quite a bit in the past for staging equipment. So that's close by enough.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I'm guessing that that because of the goats and because the first part of the STO has already been constructed, that there's a better understanding this time. I'm wondering if the city or the parks, or even Don, what you've heard, whether there's greater acceptance of this project at this point than there was a couple of years ago, several years ago when we started.
Yeah, we always hear great acceptance until the equipment comes out. So, but so far I haven't heard anything.
And you, Don?
Well, that cues me to say this kind of discussion is just extremely important. The more people who are aware of what the planning is and take the opportunity to pose questions and make comments, it just makes all the difference. It's being surprised that's so difficult. I want to be sure to say that, with the Parks Foundation, the removal of the to get down to terrain so we can see what we're designing for. Are there any tweaks like Mark talked about? But in addition to the planning that will be done as part of the project, then through the Parks Foundation, the Friends of the STO Fund, there will also then be with Bart Berg, who walks on water, as far as his give a damn for the community and active engagement. So then we will be restoring with natives. We'll also work on making the creek bed visible there. so that we can see our watershed. And that, I believe, it's very important to the critical even to the story that we need to tell, that this is a greenway and that we intend to leave it better than we found it. So my sense is, yes, that people are, so many people, notably walking, which is the expected primary use of the trail. It's just heavily used. And with COVID, almost overnight, there was a big jump in use, and that's been true nationally. The Rails to Trails Conservancy found a 200% increase in their research with COVID starting. So there is a lot of use, and people are appreciating and commenting. I get a lot of nice comments on the things that I post on Facebook. When we started, to say anything STO on Facebook was like inviting a herd of elephants to poop on you.
Well, I do remember some discussion of the bridge that might have gone over 305. Now,
Yeah.
of course, people are going to be crossing at the intersection. And I don't know whether there's any thought about that complicating traffic at that busy intersection.
Well, I would say that the importance of being able to get from one side of the highway to the other in that mile-long section in the heart of Winslow, there still needs, notably for pedestrians, to be a safe way to get across. And that was very thoroughly researched about where's the best place, the safest, the affordable. So I would say that we should be keeping that in mind. And I would say that, you know, I walk the trail most days and like you do. And there is, if you just stand there, you will see a constant stream. You know, every so often, somebody will go to the edge of the highway, watch for traffic, and run across. So
right
the traffic is there,
right at that spot.
right at that spot.
I'll piggyback on something on those comments, and I guess I don't know if I'm speaking for the foundation in this regard, but certainly as a citizen, I think that the wounds, if you will, over the STO were like fresh enough when the pedestrian bridge vote was taken, that informed that decision to not build the bridge, and if I have the timing right there. But I think that through the work of the city and Friends of the STO and the Parks Foundation and just simple use of the enhancements of and use of the STO trail, people have gotten more comfortable with it. And I think if that pedestrian bridge vote were taken today instead of 3 years ago, whatever it was, I think that we would be building a pedestrian bridge now, because I think people would see the wisdom of a safe crossing over the highway via a bridge.
Yeah, I do. As Don said, I walk that section almost every day, and it's just beautiful to see the native plants taking root and the blackberries not taking root, and
Being extirpated.
and the enhancement on the John Nelson Trail and all that. It's all been although it's right beside the highway, it's much nicer than walking on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I should thank Don and the Parks Foundation primarily for keeping that first part of the STO trail looking good. And I'll just maybe comment what the city has looked at crossings as part of the sustainable transportation plan. We're going to continue to look at crossing 305 in strategic locations and the best ways to do that. The separated crossings obviously are the safest and most comfortable, separated being either by bridge or tunnel. And there have been proposals for capital projects, both for an on-grade crossing at Vineyard Lane to get across 305 there with some sort of additional signal there. We're also been looking at like bicycle crossings at the 305 High School Road intersection. Both those things didn't get funded. Neither one got funded over the past couple of years, but they're still out there on the books and could potentially happen sometime.
So before we wrap this up, there are some ongoing city efforts and community efforts around non-motorized transportation, around looking at how to calm or slow traffic in certain parts of the neighborhoods. Obviously, people have their own particular part of the island road that they have found frustrating. If somebody's interested in getting involved or participating in this discussion, what are some of the ways they can do that besides, Facebook?
If you allow me to share my screen once more, I just wanted to pull up the city website. And if you go to southbainbridgewa.gov, for those that haven't been there, and first thing you'll get in the banner is if you're concerned about traffic speeds, you can click on that banner when it comes up. And there's this new web page that we're calling Engage Bainbridge, but it gives you a way to have some interactive ways to give your input. And there have been some public meetings. Right now we just have 2 projects on this web page, but we're gonna put more. And then that neighborhood traffic calming is one of them, so you can view the project there if you click on that, and then it gives you more information and ways to engage. So you can participate there. I encourage you to go ahead and do that. Also, if you want more information about any city project, the place to find that is at the main page. If you go down to these picture banners under city projects, click on that. That'll get you to the public works projects. And from there, it's all the current projects. There's also a list of completed projects. But the Sakai Pond Connector Trails, one we've been talking about today, and you can get lots more detailed information if you want it from there. That's my last pitch.
That's great. No, thank you for that.
It's just so much easier to see the wildlife, and it's so much better habitat that that's one of the joys.
Great. Yes. Well, thank you, Don and Douglas, and thank you, Mark, for participating in this. I learned a lot, and we'll be happy to have you back at any point as we learn more about what might happen after we go around the bend into the Sakai Park.